Today's episode is brought to you by news. Precious Overwatch League news.
It's high noon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to High Noon Podcast, the competitive Overwatch podcast. I am your host, Blevins. With me, as always, is Deathblow. What's up, buddy?
Not too much, man. Long time no talk. Welcome back to America.
I know. It has been what seems like 10,000 years since we recorded an episode. But we are back.
Well, like the amount of miles that you've traveled. But
yeah, 10,000 miles. I would walk 500. It was way more than 500 miles. And also, you can't walk across the Caribbean Ocean or sea, whatever it is. I don't know how that works.
I'm not a marine biologist.
I'm still not even convinced that Jamaica is a real place, but even though I was there. But we've got some actual news to talk about. There are things happening in the off season. Finally, things that are noteworthy. There's been a lot of stuff that's been happening, but it's just like as much as I wanted there to be like other tournaments and stuff going on in the off season, and I realized I just don't care about those things. There's like little, like, I don't know, side tournaments and like there was the like stupid thing with like the San Francisco Shock like playing Jenga or something.
I don't know about that. We do know about some show matches. Like there's like the battle for California between the Valiant, I believe it is, and the San Francisco Shock. I think that's coming up.
Are you sure that wasn't just them playing Jenga?
I mean, there could be a good amount of them playing Jenga and stupid stuff in there, but they also did that in Apex, so I can't rule out that actual Overwatch gets played. We also do know that London and Houston are going to be doing an event where they play each in their own respective cities, so there will be them playing in London and also them playing in Houston. So if you're local to either of those teams, make sure you do check those out. Mm-hmm. I know we're getting a Beat Invitational again very, very soon. Ooh. So an old school tournament is resurfacing a little bit. We should have ZP there for that to cast that as well. So that'll be a lot of fun. We might get to see. It's probably going to be relying really heavily on the contender scene to fill it out, as I don't think the Overwatch League players can participate. But nonetheless,
I don't think I want to.
No, probably not either. Yeah, they're World Cup focused and vacation/break focused. I'm guessing at the moment. Yeah, but like you said, we got a good amount of news. We made up a little bit of news, and yeah, it's still in a slow trickle at the moment. Yeah. But with taking a week off, you kind of get to consolidate 2 weeks worth of news into one and actually get a full episode out of it.
Yes.
So we'll pretend like we planned that from the beginning, and that's why you went.
Yes. But let's talk a little bit about some of the stuff that's been going on in the High Noon Productions world. Blackwatch Report, they just, they never stop. There's nothing that can happen. There's like very few things that can happen that will get them to miss an episode. And multiple times they're putting out 2 episodes a week with interviews and whatnot. So they have really been cranking out the content lately. Make sure you check them out. They have their own iTunes feed, Blackwatch Report, if you're into the tier 2 scene whatsoever. Kyle Wynn and Thorn Rain are the dudes for you. Make sure you watch that out. Or watch that out. That's not a thing. Make sure you check them out and watch them. My brain is still frazzled. Okay, so around the payload, I've got an idea. We only have 2 weeks until 3 weeks. 2.
There's only 2 more episodes before we leave.
There's 2 episodes before we leave for BlizzCon. So instead, long story short, I want to do a super episode where we wait as long as possible before BlizzCon, potentially the week before BlizzCon, where we have the maximum amount of stuff to talk about. We have a super episode of Around the Payload. Because I love Around the Payload. Everyone loves Around the Payload, but it's just if I'm grasping at straws for topics to talk about, it feels forced. And I want everyone that comes onto the show to have I want them to have a nice meal, a nice hearty steak dinner to talk about, not a bunch of appetizers and random things that I scrambled together. So we're going to wait unless there's like, if we get a huge influx of stuff in, maybe we'll have one next week and the week after. but plan on there being one around the payload before BlizzCon. That's what you should plan. And for the High Noon Hot Seat, the Overwatch League talent caster interview series. I messed up the name. I'm surprised I got as many of those words right as I did. Doa is up. So make sure to check that one as well. A. Smith mentions that he loves appetizers. Well, A. Smith, maybe we'll get some appetizers too. I don't know. We'll see. But
that's why you're skinnier than us.
Yeah, much skinnier. Let's move on here and talk about what we did these last few weeks. Deathball, let's start with you. Anything fun and exciting?
No, it's been pretty great. I'm not gonna lie to you. I mean, I've been doing some family stuff. Like I went to my nephew's little loop football game. The temperatures finally turned in a downward direction, which is great. For me personally, I love the cold.
I like it better than sweltering heat, that's for sure.
Yeah, I've just been kind of relaxing and hanging out as best I can. And yeah, just trying to get ready for BlizzCon because I'm on like a financial freeze. So that way I have as much money to waste on stupid stuff while in California as humanly possible. So really looking forward to that, planning that out, and constantly searching the trademark database for names of Canadian and U.S. teams.
True. And we'll be talking about some in the very next segment, not the segment after. But yeah, actually for BlizzCon, the pre-order like merch page is up, so you guys can literally check and see exactly how much money you're going to waste on stuff. God. Not everything is revealed, probably. There's probably some secret stuff for the Diablo Battle Royale. I mean, crap, I wasn't supposed to leak that. But yeah, so I was on vacation for what felt like 10,000 years in Jamaica. I think I probably mentioned it before, but I was going to not even my friend's wedding. My girlfriend was in the bridal party for one of her college friends, and of course that means that I went. I made a big fuss about it. It was like $1 million or whatever, but that money has long since been spent. So it was a good time being there, and I was on one of the resorts, so it's just like infinity drinks and food. You don't ever have to pay for anything because you've already paid way too much for it. But yeah, no, that was good. It was, I don't know. It's just I'm not a resort person, I guess. I found that out. Being waited on hand and foot is not my cup of tea. But what is my cup of tea is the literal infinite cups of coconut rum and pineapple juice that I was served at any given second. So
it would have gone full circle if you'd said Long Island iced tea.
Yeah. Well, I drank too many to make the joke. And then also, as the YouTube and podcast or non-podcast viewers may be able to see, I got a new hoodie, and you're gonna think it's weird, not because it's floral print, but because it is the Outlaws floral print limited edition hoodie. It's a sweet hoodie. I don't even care. I don't even care what team it is. It's a sweet hoodie. I love this material, and let me tell you, I was not sponsored to plug this. I love this hoodie. I wish I got it for free and had to say that I liked it in order to contractually make up my contractual obligation. But no, I paid full price for this. I really like the hoodie. It's a really nice material. It's not like I'm finding out, especially with a lot of Blizzard clothes, and Death, you should keep an ear for this one, is that a lot of these clothes are like California clothes. So like, don't get anything that you want to stay warm with, because they never need or want to be warm. So nothing actually provides warmth. But that's good as an inside hoodie, because like I can wear this with, in a inside and not like be sweating. So it provides a little bit of warmth, but man, if I need to shelter myself from the cold, this floral print Outlaws limited edition hoodie, not doing the job.
Officially an Outlaws main confirmed.
I'm still wearing the NYXL hat, and
but not the nice red one that like hides that it's an NYXL hat. That's really the best part.
I love the red one. It's a really great hat. But this is my like battle scarred. It's like dirty. Right. It's so dirty, and it's grimy, and it's just like that hat that you have and you love because
you want to rep your
so
team, but you're going to be sweating some that day, so you
yeah.
might as well.
My red NYXL hat is my like going out fancy hat that I make sure that I'm not going to be sweating for at least 8 hours when I wear it, which is very hard to do, very hard to set that scenario up. But yeah, so let's move on here to
Overwatch Today meme of the week.
this is one that this is a meme that I really wanted to be news, but it's almost certainly not news. Death, you want to talk about this one in your search on the Canadian patent site?
Yeah, so I was looking around on the Canadian Patent Office website and searching for potentially the Toronto team name, and you have to stop anything that's like Toronto whatever's, right? Like you're just
Anything that
looking
could
for
be a
one
team
that's
name.
like right. The Toronto's not the third word or something
Right.
like that. They all stop and catch your eye, and I caught one. And listen, I can't rule it out.
No,
I mean, I can.
we can because of the dates, but maybe it's the long
right.
con.
Right, they could have known
Think about
from
it.
forever ago.
Think about it.
But no, I found one that's like the Toronto Raccoons. And they've got a logo of a raccoon giving like the people's eyebrow
Yeah.
while he pops up out of a garbage can. And it's just I just wanted to pick on anybody, basically Blevins, that I knew was going to be rooting on Toronto and be like, this is your new team. So yeah, the Toronto
Could not
Raccoons.
be more excited.
Honestly,
for that.
it would be. I would love that, and it would be better than like them going with the Canadian branding that I've talked about being afraid of and stuff like that. This would be way better. And to be honest, look at the logo, Blevins. Tell me that wouldn't make a pretty nice pewter keychain,
That would be sick.
right?
The
I would put that on my.
the Toronto. There are dumber mascots in the sports world.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you, UC Santa Cruz Banana Slugs. So when you have that as the bar that is a real team, the New Orleans Pelicans. That's an NBA franchise. That is a dumb mascot.
Toronto Trash Pandas.
Toronto Trash Pandas would be sweet. I could not be more excited if that's the case. But we tweeted out Ford, the truth lawyer, kind of shot that one down. But we didn't get any we didn't get any disconfirmation from the Toronto Overwatch League team.
They're not denying it.
They didn't deny it. Just saying. Think about it. But let's move on here to wherever I find this button. Did I lose the button? No, it's right there. Same place as always.
News.
I'm an idiot. Now, we finally got some news to talk about. The first of which relates to the Toronto Trash Pandas. In fact, there's going to be a Toronto Overwatch League unveiling party or release party, whatever you want to call it. They're going to release I'm assuming they're going to release the name, the brand, all that stuff for the Toronto Overwatch League team. That is on October 24th, and that is in downtown Toronto, which, as you may know from listening to the show, is essentially as close to local as we can get. So I'm making the trip. I'm going. I'm taking a half day of work. I'm going up. I'm going to get there, hopefully not get hit with that 5-hour Toronto traffic and rush hour. I'm going early. I'm going to go. It's going to be awesome. Also going to be meeting, although maybe he doesn't want me to out him that he's going to be there, but he's from Toronto, so I think it's fair game. Great Root Bear is actually going to be there.
He's from like originally from Toronto, but lives in New York now. Okay,
he's actually moved back to Toronto.
Greenwall. I'm so confused. But anyway,
originally from Toronto, worked in New York, now back in Toronto because visas are a thing, work visas and stuff.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so that's gonna be fun. Oh, we got a sub from Shrug Off. Thank you so much, buddy. I always forget to turn off the notifications before we do the show, so we're just gonna embrace it.
I was wondering why you were acknowledging it, not in text.
Yep, because it's just happening. As we're talking about the Toronto Overwatch League team, Shrug could not help but have Excelsior go off. So let's do that. But yeah, so if you're going to be there, I'm also going to be there. Let me know if you're going to be in the area, if you're going to go to that party, because I'm going to be there. I have no idea any of the details. There might be more details on it out. I just didn't read it. I just saw there's a party. It's in Toronto. It's on the 24th. I'm like, okay, I'm going. So it's happening.
Will almost certainly be a solo adventure by the Blevins. So, yeah, you should be able. If you're in the area, you should be able to meet at least him.
I think it's definitely specifically tailored for people in exactly Toronto because it's on Wednesday, which is a really weird day, and it starts at 6. So like right after you get out of work, but I am a degenerate, so I'm taking a half day.
Yeah, all my time off has been used either earlier in the year on like dental appointments or BlizzCon. I'm not leaving a day late and changing a flight to get there. Right. So
I didn't have this job when I booked all my flights, so it doesn't count. Think about it.
Right.
Think about it. Those days don't count if you tell them about it before you take the job. So, yeah, good stuff. It sometimes it helps being a degenerate. But let's move on here. Talk about some of the other things that are happening or have happened rather. Florida Mayhem has hired Bare Hands as the assistant GM. Finally, someone picked up on the untapped potential and talent of Bare Hands. Literally crafted the arguably most powerful team in season 1 if you look at it as a whole season and not just the chokes at the end. Certainly had the highest highs of any team.
Sure. Big props to the Florida Mayhem for making this hire. I think it's a big coup for them. Really, really happy for our friend Bare Hands. What the hell at 19 other teams that let this guy become an assistant GM for the Florida Mayhem? And I'm sorry, Florida, I don't know who you have as your current GM, but let's go ahead and fire him and promote Bare Hands. Get out of here. There's a little bias in there, but, obviously this guy needed to be employed within the Overwatch League, and to me, him being an assistant is a little crazy, but nonetheless, a big addition here for Florida. Hopefully they can make use of that, bring in exactly the players they want. More on that in just a minute.
Yeah, we will be talking about that very soon.
I might as well take this.
Yeah, we might as well just do it.
And the next bit of news, we'll go right into the Florida one. Florida has signed Chris, who is a main support from Meta Athena, BQB, a DPS player from X6 Gaming, and Swan, who was the NRG main tank who went under the name Butcher in NA Contenders. So they are making moves, filling out that tiny roster that they had, what was left after they cleaned house. And as far as I can tell, these are some solid additions. Again, we pay much closer attention to the NA side of things than we do the Korean side of things. So I don't have a ton of experience watching Chris or BQB. I know Butcher was pretty solid. I mean, we don't have NRG as like one of the top contenders teams. I think there's bigger name tank players here, but as we saw with Bare Hands in New York, it's not always about going out and getting what was the best before, right? Like, so sorry, Runaway fans, but I don't think if you went and signed Runaway as a 6-man group, brought him into the Overwatch League, you would just automatically be in the playoffs. Like, it has to work out. If just signing a big pre-existing team, how'd that work for Dallas last season? There's a lot that has to happen here.
How did it work?
Right. There's a really big transition here that's going on, and it's about finding the team that's right for the environment. And I do have a lot of trust in Bare Hands. We trust to be able to build that roster. So we need to see what the rest of it's going to look like. But they do join. We've got still there. We've got Awesome Guy. We've got Saya Player, and we've got Tavik. So now they're officially up to 6. And they're 2 away from the league minimum, so definitely more to come from the Florida Mayhem, and we will have to wait and see. I know personally, I am very, very curious where they go with Off Tank, given the quality of what they let walk out already. I think that's going to be a really interesting conversation here, but I do also believe Swan is, I need to look him up. But I believe he's Korean as well. And if that's the case, we're still looking at just Tavik.
All right. We have a Plian Hagopian as well on Florida.
Oh, yeah. They did sign. Okay. So they're at 8. So they are at the minimum. That's right. Good on you, chat, for helping us fill in the gaps there. But yeah, Swan is Korean, so Apply is
I'm pretty
not
sure
Korean. I don't think.
I think pretty much everyone is Korean. Though I wouldn't be surprised if Barehand
No,
pulled from
Apply is not Korean. He is from the United States. His name
Oh,
is
okay.
Damon. So
Oh, okay.
definitely not a Korean player. So we're still a little unsure what direction they're going. I'm guessing it's still going to be mixed.
I wouldn't be
Chat's telling
surprised.
us that Swan speaks good English, which would make sense. He's not new to an English speaking roster. He's coming from NRG, which is NA organization, so presumably he had some ability to communicate there. So if I had to guess, their calls will probably be in English, judging by what they're doing. But honestly, a couple more Korean players, and you might not really need to worry about that too much.
Yeah, and it kind of begs the question of like, is much, and again, Pluppy Tavik, one of my favorite players of all time, but like, what is he doing on this roster? Like,
Driving the bus.
I guess so, but like really though, it really kind of makes you wonder. Like, I just don't know what the game plan is there. Like, did he just not want to go? Like, the rest of his squad got let go, presumably. Based on what we've heard, they had tryouts. Everyone had the ability to try out, and I guess he just tried out better than everyone else and decided to stay. But like, does he stay on? Is he like the Mayhem Milton? Is he actually starting? I don't know. It would be I'm very interested to see what goes on with Tavik, because it just seems weird that they like had they had that existing Misfits roster and then just cut all of it except for Tavik and kept Tavik, which I mean I get. Kind of, at least partially I get, but it just seems like if you're going to clean house, like, don't you just clean house? I don't know.
Yeah, and Chat's filling in more gaps here. Zephyr is on the off tank picked up. That's correct, from the Florida Mayhem as well. So that's another Korean player. I do think Tavik is definitely on the trade block, but again, a lot of these additions, Apply to me signifies that either they wanted to lock him up for their academy team, or they're making a concerted effort. Like, yes, we're going to lean heavily on Korean players because they think they're the best right now. But I do think they're keeping that ability to have comms in English, and honestly, to me, like, marketability. If you're going to be a U.S. based team,
yeah,
it's fine to have Korean players. I mean, we're all video gamers. We all know that Asians make up a large portion of esports, and the player base. So I don't think anybody's going to be upset that there's Asian players on the team. But like, for me, London would have been really tough to root for as somebody from London, just because like I met you. I can't
literally
I can't even tell you hello
because the translator wasn't there.
Right, the language barrier was just too strong, so that would definitely make it a little tough. And I think it would go a long way, marketability wise, to be able to just put the guys in front of the camera and let them talk to the fan base. So maybe it's nothing more than that, but we would have to see, I think, a trade of at least Tavik in order to make me think they were going for a deliberately full Korean roster.
Right. I don't think it's deliberate, especially considering what Bare Hands has said in the past. It's like just ridiculous. Like, it doesn't really matter, with the exception of like language barrier. It doesn't really matter where someone's from for their Overwatch, abilities, obviously. So Tavik is one of the longest standing like pros in the scene, like has been playing since the very beginning. Has presumably played with a lot of Korean players. It presumably knows how to, or at least all these guys, I'm sure, don't actually, at least at some level, don't actually need to talk in order to at least somehow convey what they're doing in the game. And like, or at least don't need to talk in the same language, because Orisa means Orisa and Junkrat, like, you just need obviously it helps speaking the same language, but you don't necessarily need to. Perhaps Tavik is just the backbone for the org. Like, hey, we don't want to come in and retrain everyone from the org side, or not retrain, but we don't want to have to acclimate everyone into the org just from the org side. We want players to be like, oh yeah, so we wake up at 11 and do scrims. And like it means a lot more coming from a veteran on the team than from the coach. Like, I mean, we've experienced that playing sports in high school and whatnot. It's like, yes, when the coach says something, like obviously you do it, but like it means it has a bigger impact if the players and the veterans on the team are doing these things as a team and working as a team, rather than like, oh, the coach said I need to be here at 11, so I'm going to be here at 11. Like that's, that is what it is. But like, okay, everyone
Coach
shows
sets the rules. Your teammates and the captains of the team like almost shame you into following them, right?
right,
Because the coach gonna make you run some laps, or you know what I mean,
Right.
something like that. You don't really care. But it's you don't want to, like, that's part of being on a team. It's that
Right.
sense of teamwork, that camaraderie. That's, you don't want to let the other guys down. You want them to be able to rely on you. Sort of.
Exactly. And I guess now that I'm thinking about it from that aspect, it makes a lot more sense, because it's like if the coach says, I'm going to use basketball as the example here because it doesn't necessarily translate into Overwatch exactly, but if the coach says, be ready for practice at 11, and everyone's just strolling in at 11 and casually walking in and getting, and then putting their shoes on, getting everything ready at 11, okay, that's one thing if the coach, but like if you're the rookie on the team and you see the veterans are, shoes are tied, everything's ready, they're ready to start the practice at the stroke of 11 and are ready to run at 11, there's a huge difference between that and everyone casually walking in and walking at 11:05 and getting practice started at 11:15. There's a huge difference between that level, and the coach can say it over and over again, but there's already like an inherent power difference and struggle, even if it's not necessarily an animosity. There's just an inherent difference in that, and it means a lot more. Like you're letting the team down if the veterans are there and ready, right, and doing it, leading by example. So the more think of it from that way makes a lot more sense. If that's the case, maybe it's just not. I don't know. I could at least see it from that. But Death, why don't you take this other one, because this one is hitting close. Even though I'm wearing the Outlaws hoodie, this next one piece of info is going to hit close for you.
Sure, yeah. Kai has been released from the Houston Outlaws coaching staff. There's been a lot of, I don't know how to describe it because I don't care about their League of Legends team, or really the parent company's overall success, to be honest. So I haven't been following it too closely, but there's been a lot of turnover within the Optic.
A lot of people got let go.
Company, yeah, a lot of people have been laid off, and it seemed to, for the most part, completely ignore the Houston Outlaws. But Kai, apparently there was a small change to the Outlaws budget, and the Kai is not going to be brought on by the coaching staff. Notably, memes aside, everybody loves to bash Kai, and he low-key earned that by handling the public remarks and the public facing side of things just so stupendously when in his time in Dallas. It was not performance based from anything we can see. It just appears to have been a purely business decision. So I'm sure we do see Kai pop up somewhere else. The guy's got a very solid resume, so I don't think he's going to have too much problems finding another assistant coaching job or analyst position, something like that, to kind of reestablish himself, work his way back up the ranks to maybe, I'm sure he would ideally like to be back, as the head coach of a team somewhere. So
yeah, it's just doesn't seem like things are really coming up Kai right now, but it's certainly, I think it's just a series of unfortunate events. I've got no animosity towards them, and there's still a bunch of teams who have a lot of spots on their staffs that have not been announced yet. So I don't think we've seen the last of Kai whatsoever. And last piece of news we got here, not that long ago, actually, Closer has left London Spitfire and will be joining.
That's not news. The first part's news. The last part's not news.
Why is it not news?
Because it's not been announced.
Is that wasn't on the...
No, we're pretty sure Closer's going to be going to the Dallas Fuel. It's not confirmed. It's not been announced by Dallas. There was like an announcement that went out. And the reason that I feel pretty confident that it's him is because somebody on Twitter found a picture of Closer that seems to pretty perfectly match up with the silhouette that they put in the announcement of an announcement. So I do believe officially announced, like Dallas Fuel put it out there.
We're live.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll check it out.
I mean, I believe A. Smith, but is it confirmed? Oh, yeah, it is. It's 100% confirmed. Please welcome closer to the team as he joins us from the Spitfire. We're excited to announce him to join the Fuel and help
like
close out
since
more
we started.
games. No, it was 2 hours ago.
Wow. Well, and our mods in Discord need to pick it up.
No, they posted both things in the announcement. They just only tweeted. The only tweet they referenced was the
okay.
Spitfire one.
Gotcha. I looked mostly at the tweet then. All right. Well, that's my bad. It looks like he has been confirmed there. I was like talking in Discord earlier, like right before the show, and it was like people were talking about it like it was a just something that was leaked and not anything that was actually announced. So, yeah, well, I think that's honestly great from the Dallas Fuel perspective. They did keep Harry Hook around in the main support role, which is obviously what Closer will be competing for. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the playtime really gets divvied up there. But I do think he gives them a really, really good just option, essentially, right? Like he gives them an alternative, something they can go to. They can mix and match a little bit. The hero pools, I think, are very similar for the two of them as far as their support roles go. I don't know that either of them is ideally a Mercy player, so it's going to be interesting to see if we do end up back in the dreaded Moth meta, what the team will choose to do for Mercy play. But at least in the time being, they have plenty of options covered for what the current meta is, and we'll have to wait and see. Again, it would be really interesting to see how they handled that. Maybe they didn't think there was anything really wrong with Harry Hook's Mercy play, and that wasn't the problem. I can't rule it out. There was too many problems in Dallas to really like pinpoint it down to like this player was an issue. But I can tell you, if we do end up in like a flexible position, like we ended the season 1 in, where you like might want one of your support players to flex onto a DPS or an off tank role, Harry Hook is super valuable because the guy is great on DPS roles. I've never seen him play a hero poorly. So it's great to keep him around. We'll have to wait and see how things develop and how everything gets figured out for the Dallas Fuel roster. Sorry, I'm not really prepared to talk about the impact on Dallas because I didn't think that was official yet. But yeah, so big news for Dallas there. They've got a couple more spots to fill as well. We will have to wait and see what direction they.
Yeah, and I'm ready for the glorious return of Effect, because you know what? As much as we have critiqued the decisions that he's made and how he's handled his season, he's an amazing player. And I want nothing more than to see him actually flex and pop off, because when he does, he's one of the most dominant DPS players in the entire league. It's just he needs to actually play the game in order to do that. So, I mean, this actually kind of transitions nicely into our next segment that we're going to be talking about, but the season changes might benefit a player like him who is really dealing with some mental health issues from being overtaxed. But let's move on and talk about that stuff.
Oh, let's break it. Yeah!
We're going to break down the brand spanking new Season 2 Overwatch League season format.
Yes.
Got some stuff. So let's just go right down the line here. Of course, we've got the starting date.
New divisions.
Yeah, we've got divisions. We got the starting date. It's going to be at the Blizzard Arena, as we knew, on Thursday, February 14th, kicking off the league's 2019 season with an expanded field of 20 city-based teams.
That's our first bit of news right there. The week started on Wednesday last year, so now it's sounding like we're going to be going Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which will be exciting, if not, frustrating for the foul play. But nonetheless, we will get that show figured out at a later date now that we know the schedule is going to be changed. But overall, how do you feel about that, Blevins? We don't have our Sundays to ourselves anymore. Now they're
Sunday. It's interesting. It seems like, well, I guess if football season's not happening,
it will be definitely done. Super Bowl should be over.
Okay. So it's not competing with football, then I guess it's fine. And I guess, like, even if it is, like, how much, I'd say probably a decent number, a non-0% of people are going to it would be lost to football, but it doesn't matter because that's not it. So I'm just wondering what kind of rating, like, is Sunday going to be the relaxed day? Is it going to be the hype day? Like, what day is the premiere day is what I'm wondering. Because, like, it always felt like, Friday, Saturday were the big
I never
days.
really got that sense from season one, but
I mean, maybe
just,
not, but
it's just too hard to know. Like, they set the schedule at the beginning, and then we find out how good all the teams are. So I think anything like that would just be kind of an accident. But overall, I think it's better for a lot of reasons. One, it's got to be easier to sell tickets in the arena for a Sunday instead of a Wednesday in the middle of the afternoon.
True.
So that should help them get a little better sales as far as tickets go in the arena. Also, it's just generally, I mean, granted, a lot of people do like family dinners and stuff on Sundays, and so that might be an interesting challenge. But I just think it's got to be better than just being in the middle of the week.
Wednesday's like the actual worst day to do anything, which is why I wish it.
And it was always difficult to like get home and get dinner figured out and do any adult type things that I need to do before I can sit down and watch people play video games for 4 hours. So I think it's great to kind of push those off onto the weekend. Also, I think it's going to help a little bit to appease the European fans some, as now they've got an extra team in the league, so we need to try to get both London and Paris to play at a time they can watch. Now we're playing at an earlier time zone that I believe is much more friendly to them. Like, I think Saturdays was easily their best day to be able to catch some matches, so hopefully that helps as well. And for all the rest of it goes, I don't think it matters much, right? It's almost like personal individual convenience, and for me, I'm used to sinking my entire Sunday into watching a sporting event on TV anyways, so might as well carry out right over and Overwatch League.
Right. Yeah. Now that I think about it like that, it's like, it's not my only concern was that it would be competing with football, but if it's not, then it's just strict upside, right? Because Sunday is just a strictly better day to do anything than Wednesday in the afternoon. So, I mean, it wasn't super bad for us on the East Coast because like the Wednesday matches like still started.
Yeah, we had 2 hours after work.
Right.
Like,
we were still
enough
fine
time to do stuff,
but like a lot of people weren't. So it makes sense that like the Wednesday games were not hype, even if they were hype matches. Like they weren't hype in the arena because like people aren't going to take off of work for every single Wednesday game.
West Coast is in the office. Mountain Time was driving home from work. Central just walked in the door, and it was so I think generally speaking, this will be a good improvement.
Yeah, for sure. So of course we have the 8 new teams that are joining, but we now have the division set up, confirmed now. So in the Atlantic Division, we have Atlanta, Paris, Toronto, and Washington, D.C., alongside, of course, Boston, Florida, Houston, London, NYXL, and Philly. So that is going to be the Atlantic Division. Of course, the rest of the teams are going to be Pacific, but that is going to include Chengdu, Guangzhou, Hangzhou, Vancouver, and then Dallas, both LA, San Francisco, Seoul, and Shanghai.
I just got to say, I have no idea that you were even remotely correct on the Chinese city name pronunciations, but you sounded like you knew how to say it. You didn't sound like you were guessing there. So props to you for at least making it up with confidence. And you sold me. They're correct. That's how they're should be said now. We'll change it if it's not. And also, I'm just going to make you pronounce them forever going forward because I can never do it.
For sure. Yeah. So I don't know what I don't know if we've really talked about this, but are you priced into Toronto because it's, right down the road, or have you picked an expansion team favorite? Are you waiting on branding?
That's the Houston Outlaws. No, I need to see branding and I need to see
obviously it's the Houston Outlaws, but they're not an expansion team.
But like I said, Toronto is the only one that could really get me, I think, to root for them even a little bit. Like, to me, expansion teams, they're like, that's cute, but we'll see if you're any good, and then what I mean. Like, they need to prove themselves to me that they have any idea what they're doing before I just stake my claim in them. It wasn't a luxury I had with the initial rollout of teams. So yeah, I'm making them prove it a little bit and show it before I buy in at all. Toronto, just by virtue of proximity, I'll buy in if their branding's good. I don't need anything else. I don't need to care what the roster is. Right. If the branding's not like super Canadian and it's something I like and it's not like terrible colors, I really would just probably buy into them as like my number 2, just root for them. Just for the sake of like when they start playing in Toronto, it would be really fun to be invested and go there and watch them play. So I really want Toronto to be that team. But if they're, you know, the Maple Leafs or the Canadians or something, like some hockey team name, I'm out with quickness. So
yeah, unless they're like literally the maple syrup.
Right.
I would 100% be in it because I love maple syrup.
I mean, maple syrup's delicious. That one I might go with, but it's just
but if they're the maple leaves or the maple trees, or even if they're just called the Toronto Maple, but they're called the Toronto Maple, but they're branding like, even if the official one isn't syrup, but Leaf. They could. He speaks
Make
French.
Everybody change their name to Leaf.
Well, if even if it's just called the Toronto Maple and their like official logo is the maple leaf, but a lot of their like branding and stuff like refers to syrup, I'm in. If there's anything involving pancakes or breakfast, if there's anything involving breakfast, I'm 100% bought in.
I don't know a ton about Canada, but if all you need is maple syrup to be involved, I think you've got a pretty good chance.
I love maple syrup so much. You have no idea. Actually, you have some idea because I've been detailing I've been saying in great detail how much I love maple syrup.
I'm learning it on the fly.
Yeah.
But one thing that we do want to kind of tie this conversation into the next conversation that we're going to have, and that is the 2019 format will see that all 20 teams play 28 matches over 4 5-week stages. So we're remaining 4 stages. We're remaining 5 weeks a stage. However, instead of playing 40 matches for everybody, they're now going to be playing 28. So it's like almost it feels like having the number. It's not. It's more like taking a quarter off than it is a half.
Right.
But it feels like half the number of games. I know. I'm with you. I don't like it either. But stay with me, guys. To help players stay at the top of their game, also to make up for the fact that they have 8 extra teams to play, they're going to give teams more opportunities in their home cities in the offseason because they're going to play either 0-1 or 2 matches a week. So there will be creating small little bye weeks and extended breaks where maybe you play the first match and then you don't play again until the last match of the next week, sort of thing. So there's going to be some longer breaks. Listen, the players wanted the extra time. I think it was inevitable that they were going to get it by adding in all these extra teams. There's only so many hours in the day where they can broadcast and everything like that. So
7 days a week. Overwatch
at least until they retire to their home cities and everything's truly regionalized, we were going to have to see the number of games drop off. They could increase again at a later date, but now we know they're going to be playing 28 total matches. John, we did the math on this earlier.
Yes.
Okay. There's 10 teams in each division.
Yes.
They're going to play everybody once throughout the season. We know that. In division, out of division. That makes sense. So now we've got 28 games minus 10 to play the opposite division. Okay. So now we've got 18 games remaining and there's 9 other teams in your division. So what we're predicting, and this isn't information that's out there, it's just math that makes sense, is you will play everybody in your division twice and everybody outside your division once over the course of the season. I think that's a really positive change because now it's going to make the whole division thing make a little bit more sense.
Feel like it's actually a thing.
Right. And it's not just like, it only matters for the number 2 seed and like 3 of the matches and throughout the course of the season will be different. It doesn't need to be that kind of a shallow of a thing now. So now it matters a lot more how strong these divisions are. It's going to be a big boost or a big advantage. It'll kind of outweigh itself a little bit just by the like bad teams playing against bad teams. Like if it turns out like the season 1 started, right, and that's the Atlantic is stacked to the gills and the Pacific is just the bottom of the barrel, then it's going to weigh out, right, because bad teams playing against bad teams are going to even out record wise, and so it's not going to be like a game breaker. But I would almost like to see them go a little deeper with these divisions. Like let's say you're sending 6 teams from each division, right? So we're going 12 total teams into the playoffs. I'm just making it up. They probably tell us at the bottom how many are going, whatever. But like I want to see them go 6-6 from each side. I want to see them differentiate. So we're taking the top 5 or top 6, whatever, Atlantic teams, the top 5 Pacific teams, and we're putting them, and they don't need to be separate brackets in the playoffs or whatever, but I would like to see that a little bit as well. I think that creates a really interesting dynamic in the NFL. I think on the outside, it looks like it's not good or not a lot of fun. And listen, sometimes you're a Bills fan and the Patriots are in your division for your entire life, and it's not always the best thing in the world. But at the end of the day, the fact that teams within divisions play against each other more, they know each other better. You get better games, you get crazier results, funner outcomes as a result of division games because you play against them way more often than you do everybody else. When you build your roster, you think, I need a support player that can counter say by Olby. I need a Zenyatta that's not going to die to the tracers in the back line that I haven't. So you build your rosters differently based off your division versus the opposite division. There's a lot of wrinkles that come with divisions, and I think we're going to start to see them take shape a little bit here. And then hopefully as we continue to add teams, it will get even more interesting and dynamic as far as divisions go. So I know we've had some people in Discord, specifically Europeans that aren't used to that, because I don't think they have divisions in the same way in the European soccer leagues and stuff like that. So it's give it time. Let it last year it didn't make a ton of difference. This year it's going to make more of a difference, and I think it's going to continue to expand and be a more dynamic thing with the divisions and a more fun thing as the league develops and matures over time. So keep it in mind. Also, it looks like all the expansion teams going into the Pacific, well, Vancouver's there too, so maybe not. 3 of the 4 at least will be heavily Korean rosters, and I'm not upset to see that not just drop into Houston's division. Might not make a big difference season 1. I don't think it will. But down the line, you have to think they'll develop and at least have a higher percentage chance, like mature into a top flight team.
Well, the other thing about divisions, 2 things, is now if NYXL has let's use Pine as an example. If NYXL wanted to trade Pine, well, all of a sudden you're probably not going to want to trade him to Toronto, or you're not going to want to trade him to London, because you're going to have to play again.
And you don't care as near as much, or almost at all.
Yeah, go to Guangzhou. That's fine. Go ahead. Go play in Guangzhou. Don't care. Have fun crushing those other teams. Like, that's great. But yeah, it's still like playing against the interdivision teams 2 times as many times is definitely huge. But I agree with you. I'd like to see have the stage playoffs even be like top 4 teams of each go in, and then jumble it up. However, I mean, even I don't even mind. I like having the American League championship game, or the Eastern Conference for the NBA or whatever. I like having that division. It's well, LeBron used to play on the Cavs and now plays on the Lakers, so he's gonna have to play against Golden State a lot, and now the finals aren't guaranteed now. It's probably going to be Boston and either LA or Golden State, but it's not just going to be Golden State, Cleveland again, because LeBron changed divisions. That actually means a lot. And now for Pacific and Atlantic Division for Overwatch League, now actual rivalries can really start to happen. Or the only one I would consider a real rivalry that felt genuine and not just Boston versus New York here because the classic 100-year rivalry happened. It's or Houston versus Dallas. The battle for LA felt real. The fans were into it. Everyone
was real because it was real for the fan base. I do think Houston Dallas has every bit of the firepower that does in the local fan bases. And I'm not being from New York City or Boston. I'm sure if you are from there and you're rooting for you care. But you're right. The fan base stuff definitely mattered. So but divisions will help with rivalries. And one thing I want to clarify before we move on is there's been a lot of topics that came up about league management and things like that, where I took passionate stances and said like, no, it would be super bad for the league if they did this or something. Like, I don't think this is necessarily one of them. You can function fine without divisions. It's not a mandatory thing, but I do think it creates a fun, different element and a different way to strategize and things like that. So they're going with it, so we should embrace it.
And I think we're going to see even more division, especially with localization, because you don't want to send every single team to China every stage. Like, it's going to be like, okay, the the Atlantic Division plays in China, the Pacific Division plays in LA this stage, and then maybe swap them. Or they play in New York this stage, and they play that's how it's probably going to be. Maybe not stage, maybe it's week to week. But I wouldn't be surprised if we saw entire stages like, okay, this entire stage is played in China, or they do the Asia stage, and they do the West Coast stage, and then there's an East Coast stage and a Europe stage. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that happens, because it'll probably be not the conferences, the divisions that are playing all at once, and then maybe, I don't know, maybe stage 2 is the intra division stage where they all play in LA or something. I don't know. But I think the divisions right now, it's like division light, where like it's going to mean something to play against your division. It's going to mean something to be in your division, but it's not the end all be all like it is kind of in the NFL or even Major League Baseball. Like, Major League Baseball, like, they play 162 games, but, and I could be wrong about this, so don't quote me on it, but there's sometimes teams don't even play against each other in the MLB. Like, the Yankees don't play against the Padres very often, if ever, during the season, but they play against Boston 15 games a season.
In the NFL, you only play against somebody in the opposite conference once every 4 years.
There you go.
And you only get a home game against that team once every 8 years, because you alternate every other time you play them, who's home, who's away. So it's definitely different in a lot of different sports. And I don't think there's too much point in predicting it down the line, because it's going to matter so much how the math works out, right? Like, we could see them not be called divisions anymore. It could be the Atlantic Conference and the Pacific Conference, and then subdivisions within the conferences. We really don't know exactly how it's all going to play out. But for the time being, at least, this is what we have, and it should feel like an expansion, like an extension of what we had last year. Hopefully, it feels like it.
Yeah, all in all, I think good stuff there. Moving on here, we've got the stage finals supersize. Stage finals are returning in 2019 after stages 1, 2, and 3. The top 8 teams from each stage will make the stage finals, which is expanding to become a seeded playoff bracket. According to stage record, divisional winners will be seeded into the number 1 and number 2 slots, followed by the next 6 teams in the standings.
Sure. So basically exactly what we saw last season, but now it's going to be a full top 8, and then they will be in a seeded playoff bracket instead of like, it wasn't really room to be a full bracket when you were only sending 3 or 4 teams. Everything was just kind of decided out. But we should be able to know going into it, like, winner here will go to play the winner here. I think it's all going to be, I don't know, seeded playoff bracket. I never remember exactly.
I think now this season it's going to feel like an actual tournament, whereas before it was an actual tournament after the first round. It was just like there was the weird, like, oh, NYXL has a bye, and so does Valiant has a bye
Boston
too.
had one once,
yeah, it's just like there was a weird bye because they only had 6 teams. It just didn't. It was really awkward. But now it's going to feel more like a real tournament, and then the seeding is it's going to matter.
Pretty sure it was 4 teams, not even 6. So it was even smaller. Like, it started 3, and then they expanded to the 4th team.
Oh yeah, for the stages, but not
for the stage finals,
not for the. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yes. Okay. I was thinking something different, but yes, it
and notably, there no stage playoffs after stage 4.
Yeah,
that will not be happening.
Yeah,
there's something else instead, but we'll get to that. In a minute.
The lame duck stage 4. Why isn't this just the grand finals event? Is no longer there. But we've also got the All-Star Summer Vacation. So for 2019, the All-Star break is taking a page from some pro sports leagues and moving to the middle of the Overwatch League regular season, specifically between stages 2 and 3, which will have a longer break in between them. Sounds good to me. I mean, that's a pretty normal thing for baseball. That's like the marker of like, okay, after the All-Star break, they're blah, blah, blah. It's nice to kind of have that artificial, very defined midpoint with a break in between. It's going to give... It did definitely feel like, I think it was around like stage 3-ish, where it just felt like every single person, fans, players, casters, staff, just everyone kind of felt like this, like it was too much. Like it was nonstop. Like the hype of it being the beginning and the first season kind of wore off, and it was too far away from the finals to just be like, okay, it's stage 3, man. Like it was like the Wednesday of of stages. It's like there's so much left. And I want to be excited for Friday, but Friday is so far away. It's Wednesday right now. That's what stage 3 felt like, but this is good. I like this, and like it'll give us a little, like let's change it up. Like let's have a non-serious thing in the middle, and then also get back to work afterwards. I like that. And
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is it feels like it gives me more of an opportunity to embrace the kind of goofiness of like the Lucio ball and the weird game modes and stuff like that. When at the end of the season, I don't know, I wasn't having it. I was like, my Overwatch gas tank was full. You know what I mean? I was just ready to
empty.
Well, I couldn't handle anymore was what I was kind of getting at. And so when it was nonsense, it was even harder to get into, and this will just feel like a more like that skills competition-y kind of thing that we see. So I don't know. I'm not a big all-star game kind of a guy, but I'm willing to give this a shot. And I do like that if they're going to extend the break between stages 2 and 3, that we're getting something in the middle of it. So I think that'll be good too.
And a couple other things. The All-Star game after the grand finals just kind of felt like it was like the encore, but it didn't have the meat. Like the grand finals was so huge and grandiose, and like the All-Star game was like kind of like an encore, but it was just like it was back at the Blizzard Arena. It was a good event, don't get me wrong, but like not the same level. The other thing is like if we start seeing these like interdivision rivalries growing and like teams are still in contention and playing for playoff spots and stage playoff spots, like they might be taking these all-star games a little more seriously, and we might see a little more like less like, oh haha, everyone wins, and more like I'm going to destroy you now and I'm going to destroy you in stage 4 as well. Like we might see a little more it might see a little bit more I don't know, tension in the games. I don't know. Maybe not. At the end of the day, it's still those same guys that are goofy at heart. Then we have the playoffs play-in. The postseason is also evolving as in the inaugural season, the division champs and the next 4 teams in the standings, regardless of division, will qualify. But this year, 2 additional teams will also make the playoffs based on the results of a play-in tournament following stage 4, pitting the 7th through 12th place teams in the overall standings against one another in an epic winner-go-home bracket. That's exciting.
It's going to be terrifying if your team's in said bracket.
But it's pretty awesome, though.
It is really awesome. The one thing I'll say is like 7 through 12 feels like a lot.
7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 16. Wait, how
so it's a 6-team playoff bracket that qualifies 2 teams into the playoffs. So the top 2, so you just don't play, you just do a tournament bracket, but you just don't play the final.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
You just stop there. So yeah, listen, I think it's awesome. In my head, I feel like it would be a little awkward to see like it works out. There's just like a buy in the bracket. Don't stress your brain about it. And we don't know. You're looking at all the information that's publicly available.
Oh, so they're doing another buy. I hate the buy. That's so stupid. Just make it 2 more teams and don't have the buy.
No, make it 2 less teams and don't have the buy.
Or that too. Yeah.
I was gonna say, do we really need the team that was only good enough to get 14th place, potentially making it into the playoffs and blowing up the bracket by having to play against the number 1 seed right away when they get there. That sounds miserable to me. I don't know that you
Yeah.
need to go that deep. Now, they're not going that deep, to be fair, though. So this doesn't sound miserable to me. But it just sounds like it might be a little too far. Like, I don't know how I'm going to feel about it if the 12th seeded team makes it in, and like, are we going to be surprised when they get 4-0'd or 3-0'd by
Right.
whoever? Like, it's just seems to me what's probably going to happen if somebody that deep goes on a run, but you never know. And this kind of throws a bone to the people that thought like the weighting thing should be a little different. Like, now you only got to get close, and then you've got to be playing well at the time.
Right.
So it almost feels like a little bit of a compromise to those people without doing anything silly. Like, well, this game means 9.9% of what, or 90% of what this game means.
Right.
It's so we don't need a math equation here. We just need a tournament bracket. And I think sports and esports fans understand that better than, like, you've got to watch college football to really want a mathematical equation to spit out who the champion is.
No,
nobody wants that.
No one ever wants that.
Right.
Anything that has to do with the NCAA, I don't want at all, ever, except for March Madness, which is the greatest tournament of all time. But nothing else about the NCAA. Like, don't have the stupid bye. Either add, or I like your idea better, subtract 2 teams from that playoff. Like, the wild card games, have the 2 wild card games. Not a foreign concept. 4 teams, 2 wild card games. I mean, traditionally it's 1 in each division, but they don't even need to do a division. Don't care. 2. Don't have a randomly the top 2 of the bottom 12 get a bye, and then the bottom 4 of the bottom 12 or of the top 12. It's like stupid. Just cut 2 of the teams. Have a regular game. Like, why?
Yeah,
Why?
and I think I have 2 very different opinions on this. And like, the beforehand me, right? The right now me is like, this is so dumb. So you're telling me that my team, they're sending 8 teams to the playoffs. My team gets the 7th seed, and then they're not going to make it because the 12th seed deserves it more. I'm sorry.
Right.
Say that again for me. But then there's like the in the moment me when Houston's got the 1 seed locked up.
Right.
And I'm just going to be like, yes, let's do more games, win or go home, and to the death, to make them bleed. Like, that's going to be a way better in the moment thing. But like, planning it out ahead of time and looking at it is what? Like, why? And so it's hard to wrap my head around unless I put myself in the moment, right? Or listen, like, your team might be the 7th seed and lose out to the 12th seed, but your team might be the 12th seed. Right. And make it in over the 7th seed.
Right. Yeah.
And that's got to be a pretty feels good man kind of a moment, right? Like, so this can go either way, and you're going to hate this with a fiery passion one season, and then it's going to make your entire season the next year. Like, this is a very divisive feature that I think they're putting in, and I'm so torn on it. Like, I've in this conversation worked myself up in both directions. Right? Like, I've been furious and super pumped about it while having this conversation right now. And so because of that, I have no opinion on it. I'm just gonna, it's not happening until it happens in my head. Like, I need to just put this out of my mind and then see how it feels when I get there. And it's happening because this could be the best possible thing that they could have done to the format, and it could be the worst thing, and there's no reason it can't be both at the same time for different people either.
I don't think it's going to be the worst, but so I think conceptually,
well, I mean, they could have just like made it a soccer league like Carrion wants them to do. Shout out to Carrion on all your crazy ideas.
Yikes.
But but like I said, it could be like just the worst for fan bases, and it could be the best for fan bases, and I don't know that there's a way to like honestly analyze this, because it's nothing like, I've never seen it before. I've seen tiebreakers, but I can wrap my head around that. It's like, well, we've defined 3 tiebreakers deep. Nobody's got the advantage. We must play to the death. Like, that makes sense.
Super draw. Draw.
This is just like, oh, you were not good enough by 4 seeds, but you might get my spot anyway.
$1 and a dream.
It's very different. And like I said, I'm excited and terrified for it at the same time. Yeah, so I don't know.
So I get it
this
now.
is a wait and see.
I get it now because like if you do it traditionally and just cut the top 8, that's something. That's fine. Everyone plays and like it's possible that we get to a point like it was in some of the stages before where although pretty much every last week of every stage at least, and even the last week before finals, we had like matches that mattered, right? At least that's going into the weekend. Going into the week, we had matches that theoretically could matter. Like it was never decided like going into the last week of this stage, none of these matches matter. Let's just do the playoffs now. That never happened. It theoretically could though, but unlikely. Now it's like it's even less likely to happen, and even more of the matches are going to matter because you're taking those last 2 spots and basically zooming in on it and expanding it to 6 teams. And now you've got like, I mean, think about like most of the stages. Did the Dallas Fuel ever gain anything from playing the last week? No. Did the Florida Mayhem would be below this threshold, but like, did the Florida Mayhem ever really have any reason to play in the last 2 weeks of any given stage? Probably not. Did San Francisco Shock? They never had a chance to be in anything except for the last stage. They had a chance, but they didn't get there, if I'm recalling correctly. I'm surprised I even remembered that happened. But now it's like, maybe spike it. Do mediocre enough and then spike it. That's fine. I just don't like the. I even like the buy now because now if you're secured, if you have 10th place secured, if you go 0-2, you still want to try to win those 2 matches because if you get 7th, you get a buy in this like little mini playoff. I'm in on the buy. I've completely 180'd here. I'm 100% in. It's perfect. This is a flawless system. I love it. Give me the stupid extraneous buy. It makes you want to play. It makes the more matches matter. I'm in. I'm 100% in.
So you have just filled out my power rankings for season 2 because now it's going to be NYXL in the 7th seed. It's going to be Toronto in the 8th seed, and neither of them are going to the playoffs, and it's all your fault right here, right now.
God, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, he's heartbroken already. You can if you're not watching on video, you can see it in his eyes. He's got the Outlaws jersey.
I just have so many
just in case I'm correct and everything I've laid out in my fantasy universe on this episode happens.
I have hundreds of Overwatch League hats. I've got all my bases covered. Literally, I have hats that haven't even been released yet. Hundreds of them. I have teams that haven't even signed contracts yet. I've got them already.
Got the Buffalo Overwatch.
Yeah, I've got the 20-year in the future Buffalo Overwatch League. Oh God. But yeah, no. All in all, I think we're in agreement that this new format is. I think we can almost call it strictly better than season 1.
Yeah, I think the only things that are negatives were unavoidable. Like I said, I'm upset that I'm getting less Outlaws games because they had a different feel for me, but I don't think there was any way around it. I don't want the league to not expand as fast as it possibly can. That's not a good thing for the Outlaws, for the show, for anybody. Just the haters, just Reddit. And nobody likes Reddit. So I don't know. I just everything else except for the the other side of me on the play-in bracket scenario. Everything else seems to be a positive. I'm really a big fan of what they've done so far here, and I'm itching right now. I mean, it's with BlizzCon on the horizon. I can't even imagine how twitchy I'm going to be for Overwatch League to start up when I get back. When I've got the new hero or whatever they're announcing at BlizzCon for Overwatch. Once that's set in, I'm going to be couple months into playing on a team again. Like I'm just going to want the pro scene back in a big way. So I'm getting even more excited, and it's too far away for the levels of excitement I have this season.
Yeah, it's even just talking through this episode has gotten me reinvigorated for the season. And then let me tell you, it happens every time, but no matter how excited or unexcited or apathetic or anything you are towards anything Blizzard related, once you're in that convention, once you see that opening ceremony, you get turned up to 10,000% no matter what. So it's gonna be a good time. But that, man, when we went into that last segment, we were at like 35 minutes, and I thought, man, this is gonna be the shortest one ever. Nope, it's not the one. We're right at an hour 10 where we always end up. But yeah, that's gonna round it out. Let us know what you thought about what you think about this season. I really can't see any. There's little things here and there maybe that you could like points that you can make that or maybe you don't like about this new format, but like I think overall broad strokes, great changes for season 2. I'm looking forward to it. Let us know what you thought in the comments. But Deathbow, anything before we go?
No, that's it for me. Thanks for sticking with us through the break and coming back after our little break. Yeah, we've got BlizzCon coming up in a couple weeks, so keep in mind that Monday right after we get back, we might record late. Who knows? We might not record at all that week. Our apologies.
I wouldn't plan on it.
Right, I wouldn't plan on us.
Certainly not going to be Monday, but
especially since we're both going, and we'll be able to like kind of give you guys some videos on Twitter or something like that while we're there. So keep an eye out for that if you're not going, and we'll try to keep relatively plugged into the Discord server, try to show you guys some cool, cosplay pictures, or I don't know, whatever. We'll find stuff to share with you.
It's going to feel similar to what we did for the grand finals, is what I would say.
And if you're going, reach out to us. We want to try to. We're not holding a meetup or anything like that. We tried to schedule a dinner for. Nobody wants to schedule anything. Nobody wants to leave the convention center.
The meetup is going to be at Con Before the Storm. If you're at BlizzCon on Thursday, go to Con Before the Storm. Basically, every podcaster or community member that's going to be at BlizzCon is going to be there. So it's not going to be an official meetup party like we did before, like we did for New York. But that's just because we're not everything is taken up. There's literally 10,000 people there. So we're not doing a party like that. It's going to be meet up with us at Con Before the Storm, and meet all the other podcast folks there too. So, all right, guys, that's going to be it. This was a nice episode to come back to. Feels good to be back. But that is going to be it for this episode, guys. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Make sure to check us out on iTunes, YouTube, all that good stuff. Leave a review, thumbs up, all that stuff. Let us know what comments you have for it. But that is going to be it, guys, for Deathblow, Iron the Lovins. And remember, it's high noon.
Got his boots and he put on his hat. He threw the coin away that same day. It's in his past and he's not looking back. He says, finding mine now, God's my way. He's not good, but he sure ain't bad. He'll make amends for the sins that he has. He says, I'll change the world one bullet at a time till I find mine.
See, you got it wrong. It's going to be Toronto 1 seed, NYXL 2 seed, and they're both going to lose to the play-in teams that were the 11 and 12 seed. Yeah, it's going to be the biggest ranching ever.